Parilla.
There you go. Nice to see you.
It's lovely to see you too. Is this your first time in Denver?
It is not my first time in Denver. I was here about 10 years ago, actually.
Oh, really? What brought you then?
I was on a cross-country road trip with Lola, my dog, my dear friend Alix, and my little Mini Cooper convertible. Yes, camping and like roughing it in a convertible Mini Cooper. And I got a tiny fender bender in Wyoming. And
Do you have anyone from Wyoming?
Yay, we're so glad you got in an accident in Wyoming! And I love you, thank you. And I was like, my brand new car, there's no way I can continue driving across the country with this fender bender. I have to get it fixed. Let's go to Denver. I know I can find a great body shop there. And so I was here for a whole week, and I loved it. So thank you for having me. And wait, no, I was here I think a couple years ago or last year doing another thing. But yeah, so this place is pretty awesome.
How did you get into acting originally?
Honestly, I feel like I was born with it because as a young girl, like around 3 or 4 years old, I was mimicking commercials for my mom, and I was crying in front of the mirror, and everyone thought something was wrong, and I would look at them and say, I'm practicing. So I believe I was inspired by my aunt, who's an actress, whom I love so much. A lot of you know who she is. And I just looked up to her, and I just love the art form. And I also grew up watching a ton of film. A ton of film, lots of shows. Growing up in Brooklyn, went to Broadway shows, and just loved theater.
It's kind of a two-parter. Is there anything your character did that you thought was out of character you didn't agree with, or is there anything that you really pushed for your character to do that you got to do?
You know, I was really pleased with what the writers have written for Regina's arc overall. I think in hindsight, I would have loved to have seen the Evil Queen and Regina come back together again. And because then that's really fully accepting oneself. And so I would have loved that somehow. If the show continued, I bet there would have been a moment where they would have just morphed back into one person again. No, I, as the actress, I wanted to just kind of go through the, experience as Regina was going through it, so I didn't ever really want to know what was coming up. I liked experiencing everything firsthand the way she was, so I didn't interfere. That's not my hat.
What about the character when you were first reading about the Regina and the Evil Queen? What really brought you to want to audition for it and to actually play that role?
So I was originally auditioning for a different show for our casting director on Once Upon a Time, and it was for this, I don't even know if the show went anywhere, forgive me, it may have, I don't recall the name, but I was originally auditioning to play a trauma surgeon, and at the end of this like 2-page monologue, the casting director looks at me and goes, I think I want you to read for the Evil Queen for a show called Once Upon a Time that I'm casting. And I was like, what? You're auditioning for a trauma surgeon, which is like medical. What did I do then? And she said, you are a good storyteller. And that's what I got from this 2-page monologue. And so she gave me the script, and I took it home and read it and fell in love with it. And started working on it, and went in, auditioned, read 2 scenes once, and Adam and Eddie sat there and said, I mean, not in the room, but they told me later, they sat there and went, this is our queen. He said, you scared the crap out of us. So that's how it all happened. But you never know for those actresses or any aspiring actors out there that sometimes you may read something and you're like, I don't know if this is right for me, but then the casting director or producers or director in the room will often say, oh my God, you're not right for this, but you're right for this other part. So for all those aspiring actors, go and get in those rooms. You never know what's going to come out of it.
Thank you.
What was your favorite outfit that you wore as Regina, and what was your favorite outfit that you wore as the Evil Queen that you would steal if you could?
I have a lot of favorites. I normally say I don't have any favorites, but that's because I have a lot of favorites. So I would say the rubber dress in the 3rd season, 2nd episode, I believe, when I step out of the carriage, and I don't go any further than that because I couldn't walk. But I looked amazing. So that rubber dress that I sweat in, like you couldn't believe, in the middle of July, in rubber. So that one was pretty hot. And I love the red dress, that iconic red dress that's velvet with the lace. It's just so feminine and sexy and regal and evil. And for Regina, you know, I loved when Rebecca came on in the season 3, and we were both wearing like these, it was like competing dresses, you know, and I think mine was purple and hers was obviously green. And I had this purple dress on that was just so beautiful, and I love that. I wish it still fit me, and I would have kept it, but it doesn't.
Thank you.
Do you have any inspirations or anyone that you look to kind of help craft this character that you're portraying in The Evil Queen?
Yes, I found inspiration everywhere. So it wasn't just like, you know, I took a little bit from people I know. From movies I've seen, actresses that I admire. Ingrid Bergman, Glenn Close. Those two probably the most, and even like, I mean, even Ursula, like, you know, just the playfulness in her, and she was just so fun and audacious, and I just love that. So, but I pulled, even Gary Oldman, I mean, honestly, like, when you're on a show for 7 years, you are constantly kind of looking for, you know, it can be anything. It could be a book I read that inspired me, it could be a movie I've seen, it could be a painting I saw, music I listened to, so I really pulled from all resources. Yeah. Stay open to everything, I guess.
Great question.
Question is if you have any advice for any aspiring directors or anyone in general that wants to go into the film industry.
Don't give up. Work really hard on your craft. Research, study, know what you're talking about, and stay open, and don't be afraid to fail. You're gonna fail a lot, and that's just part of what we do, you know, in life. You're gonna fail, but brush yourself off, pick yourself back up, and keep moving forward. And don't lose sight of your vision, and don't allow other people to, you know, mess with it too much, but learn how to be collaborative.
So my question is it difficult to play 2 separate characters, like in season 6 of Once Upon a Time, where you had to play the Evil Queen and Regina?
That's a very good question. It's not that it was difficult because it was new. So there was a bit of a learning curve for me as an actress, just kind of not playing different parts because it's what we do, but playing different parts in the same day. So there was a little bit of like shifting gears, like, okay, now I'm going to 3rd gear. Oh God, I'm the Evil Queen, let's go to 6th! You know, so it was just a little bit of a learning curve for me, and then, you know, and then in season 6, I think I got it down. Playing opposite myself as both characters. Yeah, so I like a challenge though. I'm always up for one. So when I'm presented with something like that, I'm like, ooh, let's go for it. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, so me and my sister both have black belts in Taekwondo. What kind of martial arts do you study?
I study Kempo, karate.
Woo!
Yeah, and I'm training for my purple belt right now. I just learned how to break someone's arm. Don't mess with me, all right? Don't mess with me.
Have you ever broken boards?
I deeply apologize for getting.
I haven't broken boards. No, it's not something we do there. but I do grapple. And I mean, I don't know if we want to like, roll around on the floor and try to suffocate one another. Just Saturday afternoon. My advice is to be very patient and kind to yourself. Don't try to distract yourself from whatever you're feeling. Allow yourself to feel it. Allow yourself to grieve. Allow yourself to be in despair. Because it's there anyway. And so if you shove it under a rug or you try to distract yourself by going here and doing that and staying busy, you're just really kind of putting a Band-Aid on your emotions. And just know that you're not alone. This is life. And it's all part of it. And it's, you know, life is beautiful because of the challenges and because of all the joys and happiness as well. But you have to have the yin and yang, right? The light and the dark. So if you're in the dark, just be in the dark. And then also surround yourself around people that are very supportive and loving. That's really helpful.
Question, if you were to make any hero in Once Upon a Time a villain, who would you pick and why?
Henry. Because Jared loves being evil. And when he got to do that in Neverland, when he played Evil Pan, it was like, oh my God, I've been wanting to do this for so long. And he was great. And then he did it in the Dream World. And yeah, and he was awesome. And that, was it season 6 yet? 7. Oh, that's right. Sorry. I've done a lot of episodes. That's right. It was at the end. And he was just spectacular. And so I know, as you know, for Jared as the actor playing Henry, he wanted more of that. So, because I love him with all that I am, I would want that for him. Yeah. There's been 2. One in Boomtown, when I was Teresa, and it was season 2, and I had to shoot someone for the first time. And that was really hard for me to do, because I didn't really shoot them, obviously, but I had to go into training and holding guns and stuff, and that really was not my thing. It freaked me out for personal reasons, because I had, you know, I lost my father tragically, so that was really difficult for me. And then having to kind of do that on camera was also very hard. The second hardest scene that I ever did was in the underworld, when Regina sees her dad for the first time after she's murdered him. And that was really hard for me, because it was just so connected to my own like personal life, that it was just like missing my dad and then like having all this happen. It was just like, it's a lot. It was a lot for me. So it was like how art can sometimes mirror life, and that happens often. And it was hard. Those 2 scenes in my career were the most challenging. Yeah. Wearing the corsets for 14 hours. I'm serious. You think I'm playing? No, I'm serious. I couldn't breathe, and I learned the hard way not to eat a cheeseburger in a corset, because it wouldn't get past my sternum. Like, it was just stuck. And it was painful to act with a large cheeseburger in your chest. So, corsets.
In the past, you had told a story about a supernatural experience with this clock that hadn't worked for years, and then suddenly started working again. I don't know if you remember that.
It wasn't a clock, was it? Where did you hear the story?
It was at a panel, I think. I don't know which one.
Is it after my father passed away?
Yes.
Yeah. You want to hear it?
I wanted to, yeah, I guess we could hear it again, for those who don't know it, but I didn't.
It was a silly face that, like, okay. my grandfather, not my father's father, but my mother's father, had these silly toys around all the time. Because he was an eccentric kind of guy. And there were these like old like man faces that that had a string with a tie, and you would pull at the bottom and he would laugh, and then water would squirt out and shoot you in the face. So my dad, because my mom and my dad were together, loved my grandfather's sense of humor, and he bought one of these for his side of the family, and it was in my grandmother's apartment upstairs. Now, it had been broken for so long, and this was maybe about 5 or 6 days after my father passed away, and I was 16, and everyone was just devastated. And my aunts asked me to walk upstairs with my cousin to go grab something for her, for my grandmother. And we went up there, my cousin and I went up the stairs, because in this house, we never went anywhere alone because we are convinced it's haunted, so we were terrified to go anywhere in that house. So we walk upstairs to the 3rd floor, and we go to get my grandmother's asthma spray or whatever it was, and we heard this thing laughing in the kitchen. And we were like, oh my God. And I freaked out and went like this as I was running, elbowed my cousin in the eye, black eye for weeks. We went flying down those stairs, flung open the door where the family was. We were like ghost face white, like completely white. And they were like, what happened? We told them, and they were like, that was your dad. It's just, he had a very funny sense of humor, and I think it was just his way of saying, I'm here. So that's the story behind it.
Okay, so my question.
Is that not the question?
No, my question.
You're taking up a lot of time, honey.
Sorry, my question was if you had any other experiences.
Too many to get into. Yeah, way too many. But I'm glad you got to really hear that story. Now you know that it wasn't a clown or whatever you thought it was.
I don't know how.
What was your favorite thing about filming the show and whatnot, being around all those people?
My favorite moments were the moments that took place between action and cut, honestly. And I think it's because I love acting so much, and I love telling these stories, and I love working with my fellow actors. And in those moments, there's magic, something that happens in all of us. That's not, who we are, but it's parts of us in a character. So I love what is discovered in those moments. And I also love the camaraderie and the friendships that develop. Like Rebecca has become really like my sister. I love her so much. And Jared has really become a son to me, whom I love with all my heart. So I love the camaraderie, the family bond.
What is your favorite personality to play?
Probably broken. Just because then you have somewhere to go. When you're broken, you're broken, and then you can only go up from there. So. And I feel like I've played a lot of controversial characters that, i.e. Trina Decker, Evil Queen Regina Mills, and also, someone help me, Windfall? Nina. What's her last name? I forgot. Nina. I love that they were all, they were all involved in something or some sort of lifestyle, or they felt a certain way, behaved a certain way, where everyone was like, oh my God, how could they? And everyone's filled with judgment. And then you look at these characters and then you go, but how did they get here? And then you see their struggle and journey, and then you feel like, oh my God, I can relate to that, and now they're compelling. And so I love playing controversial characters like Walter White's and all the, you know, from Breaking Bad, those are the guys that you're like, become these heroes. You're like, what is he doing? He's like selling meth. But there's something, you're like rooting for him, like Tony Soprano. You're like, he's killed so many people, but you're like, go Tony! You're like, you know, so I just think that what it says is that, you know, at the core, these people aren't really bad. And I feel like that's kind of how we have to look at people in life is, you might meet someone on a bad day. I met someone yesterday who was just such a jerk to me, and I was like, I said, are you okay? And he goes, fine. I said, you just seem really disconnected. And he's like, looked at me, and I went, God, why do I always have to say those things? Like, it's just so forward and probably rude, but I didn't like how he was treating me. And then later, he said, you know, I'm really sorry that I was disconnected. And I said, you know what, it's all good. We all have bad days. And I think it's really important not to judge people and to just fully know someone's story before you know, cast any judgment.
Great question.
What was your favorite character to play? And why?
Oh, I mean, there's so many, and I would probably say Trina Decker and Evil Queen Regina Mills, Old Hag, Ursula, well, the young Regina, because I played so many different versions of Regina. I really loved that so much, and I think it's rare that you get to do something like that in television unless you're on Alias or, what's the other one with Tatiana Maslany? Yeah, thank you. I said something once that ruined it. Not going to say that again. So, Orphan Black. Yes. So, it's rare that you get those opportunities. So, Trina Decker, because she's just so fun. You know, it was just so fun, and it was set in the 70s, and that's cool. And then Evil Queen Regina for all the colors and all of what I was able to do with her.
But what is one thing many people might find ordinary that you actually find extraordinary, and why?
What do I find ordinary? No, what do I find extraordinary that other people find ordinary? Oh my God, that's a great question. I mean, maybe it would be food. I don't know. That's not an easy question. I gotta think about that one. Because, what? I know, everyone's like, burgers. Everyone knows a burger is extraordinary. What's that? Pork rinds? That's what I heard. Someone's craving pork rinds. I think it might be a person. I think it might be a person that is probably misunderstood by so many, but I probably find them extraordinary.
So what is your favorite scene you were in Once Upon a Time?
Like Rolodex, like going through it, like who, what scene. No, I would say one of my favorites is because, God, I'm so spiritual. It's because of the message, and I think it's the message between, you know, really accepting oneself and self-love. And it's the scene in episode 14, season 6, with Regina and the Evil Queen in Mayor Mills' office. And they have this huge battle, and they tear the whole room apart, and they're about to kill each other. And then Regina just like wakes up, and she has this memory of herself as the Evil Queen, and remembering that she is her worst enemy. And she snaps out of it, and she realizes what she has to do, and she has to fully accept herself and her darkness. And I just think that that is so powerful. So that's why it's my favorite scene. It's because of the message behind it.
I love what Adam and Eddie wrote, but if you can rewrite something else with Daniel in it, what would you write?
I think a different form of closure, kind of like how how Regina was able to have closure with her dad and her mother, and I would have liked to have seen more closure between them. There was actually in the underworld, there was a moment, it got cut out, I think because of time or whatever. But there was a scene written where Regina goes to visit Daniel's gravesite. And it's like this huge monologue that got cut. Not because of me, but because it was just too much, there was too much going on. But, quiet over there! But I would have liked to have seen some closure. You know, maybe she could have apologized and made amends for her mother for killing him. Thank God this is a TV show. Otherwise I'd be like in an insane asylum. Anyway, or in jail.
Thank you for your question.
Someone who's also getting into acting, what would you say are some of the biggest pitfalls to avoid?
Don't show up not knowing your lines. I'm serious. When I directed and people were coming in, I was like, really? Just, you know, really be prepared. And set that time aside. Do not go out drinking the night before. I'm serious. Like, if this is something you want, I missed a lot of parties. I did. I missed a lot of birthday parties. I missed a lot of outings and friends doing this, that, whatever. And I was the nerd who was, I had an audition on a Monday and I was in my apartment, focusing the entire weekend and dedicating myself to my craft and my work. So I think a lot of people think acting is just like, oh, just go in there and just get read it. So no, it's not like that. And I think that if it's something you truly, truly want, then it has to be something you can't live and breathe without. And so give it everything you got, feel good about it. When you walk out of that room, you're like, you know what, I may not be right for it, I may or may not get it, but I feel good about my work.
And my question is, what is your favorite Disney movie and why?
Dumbo, because I watched it with my dad. Clearly I miss my dad. So I watched that and we used to sing all the songs. I don't think it's racially appropriate anymore. So with that said, it's just very nostalgic and personal for me. I also love The Little Mermaid because I think I was like 13 or something when I saw it. I know. And I remember seeing it in the theater with my Aunt Candy and my cousin Bianca. And I really, why I loved it is because I love the ocean, because I'm a double Cancer and you can't pull me out of the water. And I'm pruned, freezing purple, and they're like, we gotta go, and I'm like, I'm coming. So I always wanted to be a fish, and seriously, I still do. It's my big dream, and live in the ocean. And so I felt like I got to when I was watching. Although Splash and Mr. Peabody and the Mermaid are also good movies.
And my question is for you. You've played Regina and Evil Queen for like 7 years. That's a long time.
I did?
Well, yeah, right? Well, it's a long time to play a character, and so I wondered from like your skill set, your toolbox, what you might have. Like, it's mentally draining to come away from that after playing that character for a long time. So how have you, as an actress, been able to kind of let go of her or grieve her or close that chapter?
I'm still doing that. Yeah, that's a good question because, well, you asked kind of two, but I think that the last one is the one I'm going to answer because the toolbox one is just too many tools to go through. So we're just going to leave that in the garage. But I would say yes, playing someone for 7 years is very consuming in ways that I don't think I even understood. And I think it's a very strange thing for a lot of people who, you know, look at actors and don't really consider that part of it, because for actors who are also living in a different country, away from home, away from family, away from friends, telling this story, this woman's story, her life, her journey, there is very little room for self. And that's just, you know, kind of the sacrifices that we make for our art. And I would do it again because I love what I do so much.
Realized that Swan Queen had such a big fandom. We like to think that we saw extra looks, maybe an up and down glance. Was that in our imagination, or did you really do that for us?
If you're asking if I changed my performance to please Swan Queen, no. I'm sorry, that's not the answer you want, but no, I did not. I always stayed true to where Regina was and her story and what the writers intended. However, I love the Swan Queen fandom. I think all of you know that. I love all the ships. I don't discriminate and I don't favorite them.